I promised I would tell this story. So today is the day I'm going to tell it. But as we always do here in this podcast, we're going to laugh first. We're going to play a game. Today's game, because we didn't have enough time to prepare, is going to be another round of agree or disagree.
Sounds good.
We got some other ones up our sleeve, but it requires Rachel to prepare not the day of.
It's all good.
So,
had busy weeks.
That's not going to get any better anytime soon.
That's what I'm saying. You do the best you can.
Yeah. You're up first reading yours.
Cool. All right. My first one is emojis are the new hieroglyphs. And do you know what hieroglyphs are?
No. So, I don't even... You gave me this one, and I was like,
Yeah.
I don't understand what this is. Claude told me the whole joke is that I don't get it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, I don't agree, because I don't get it.
Well, it's like basically a hieroglyph's like a picture or something like that you draw to kind of signify whether it's a thing or something else.
I got nothing on what you're saying.
Like those old cave paintings and those type of things. You know what I'm talking about? Like the Egyptian.
Well, yeah,
those things. Those are hieroglyphs.
Hieroglyphs?
Yeah. Sorry. Hieroglyphs.
You don't even know how to say your own word.
I can. I just forgot.
You don't?
I just forgot.
No, I don't agree with that.
Why not?
Because that was their history book.
Okay. But
emojis are meant to, the eggplant is whatever it is, not an eggplant.
Correct. It's not.
And the peach is not a peach.
Right. But there was some hieroglyphs, though, that may have shown a bird, but it didn't really mean that.
Yeah,
So,
but
it's the same way
because
with
of
emojis.
something religious, not because of something perverted.
Well, no, I know. I wasn't debating that part.
But can I disagree, or are you gonna try to change my mind?
You can disagree, but I'm gonna throw my thoughts on it though.
Okay.
It's just amazing.
I will allow it.
It's just amazing to me how we as humans went from that. You know, you got the cave paintings and then the papyrus and all that stuff, and then you end up. It's like we're back to it. It's just in a more digital form.
I mean, I would say it's gone a longer way than that.
I don't know though. I mean,
there's a lot of steps in between bro painting on a cave.
Correct.
That's blood or something, whatever they used. I don't know.
That's my point though. Is like it went from back then, right?
Okay, well, that was a long time ago,
right? And then after that, you move to your papyrus and you write down. Then you've got all that, and then it's like now it's funny.
You're missing some stuff.
What am I missing?
I don't know. Stone.
Yeah, well, you could consider that as part of hieroglyphs and stuff too, but
and paper.
Yeah, papyrus.
Paper, like paper.
Right. But I'm saying from papyrus, then you go to.
Why do you say
paper?
Papyrus? I don't think that's how you say it.
I don't know. It sounds like it to me.
Alexa, how do you pronounce papyrus?
Papyrus is pronounced poopyrus.
Yeah, you're wrong.
Poopyrus.
Poopyrus.
Okay, that's new to me. Anyway.
Yeah, I disagree. I don't know.
My point
they were writing their history book on the cave.
I guess.
You remember our caveman bit?
Yeah, I do.
I was sad that didn't get more traction than it did.
I don't know. I don't know what to tell you on that one.
I don't know, but I'm going to link it up here so that people can see it.
Yeah, okay.
That was a good one.
Sounds good.
It was one of my favorites.
I don't know. It's just amazing that humans have come up with something.
You just interrupted me.
I know. You do it to me all the time.
No, I don't.
Okay.
Continue.
You want to go back and watch some of these previous ones?
I watch all of them, actually. Well, I listen to all of them. No, I watch them. I edit them.
Okay. My point is we went.
Do you watch them?
Sometimes.
Which was the last one you watched?
I actually listened to one.
No, watched.
Watched? I don't know. It's probably been a while.
Never listened to or watched one, have you?
No, I have. It's just been a while.
Like the very first one, probably.
No, it was a couple of them.
That is embarrassing.
My point is we went all the way back then in society, right? And that's the way we had to communicate.
I would argue we didn't have society, but yeah.
Well, that's the way we had to communicate. And then it came to...
I don't think that's how they
creating something like the alphabet.
That's not how they communicated. They had words.
Well, sure they did.
They spoke languages.
Well, I know they did.
That's how they documented their history.
Sure, but they did a lot of other stuff.
And
too.
also, we could be really wrong. That might not be at all what they were doing.
I don't know.
And it may have varied wildly depending on which civilization we're talking about.
I have no clue.
Can we move on from this very confusing topic?
Well, you keep going back and forth with it. So I guess
I'm ADD, babe.
I know.
And I've got a heavy thing coming up on my mind.
I don't know. I guess my main point in that, and then I'll stop, is
Thank you.
it's amazing that we've come so far as society to create something like the alphabet, and then it's like now
Well, they hadn't.
communication
going down a rabbit hole.
gets shorter and shorter and shorter.
I see what
as we
you
go.
mean.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I just think it's riddled with factual inaccuracies that I
have
can't
no clue.
actually prove because
I wasn't back then. I don't have a clue.
Well, historians would be just, I don't know,
They may laugh at me.
throwing
That's
back
fine.
Jack Daniels listening to this.
That's fun. Good. I hope they do. They can relax.
Yeah, right.
It's not like I can.
Okay. That's all you did today while I was building this podcast.
You didn't do anything today. What you talking about? Building this podcast.
I made this whole thing, but I still made it.
Did you?
Which is exactly why
Thought
we're
Claude
filming
did.
at 5:27 p.m.
Thought Claude did.
Not really. Not on this one. No, actually, not really.
All right, what you got? We can move on.
Oh, yes. I like this one. The person who falls asleep first during an argument wins permanently. Like, as in, can be revisited, winner declared.
I disagree.
Okay. I agree because I wrote it. But why do you disagree?
Because the person that falls asleep during the middle of the argument may genuinely be exhausted and can't continue and would like to pick it up later.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I disagree too because genuinely, you're usually the one that falls asleep and you don't win the arguments.
Why has it got to be just between me and you? I thought it was just in general.
No, we're making this personal.
Okay.
You're usually the one that would fall asleep, but you don't win the arguments. So I disagree.
Well, you can say that all you want to.
I do. I just
but
did.
I'll disagree with that.
Well, that's part of the game.
Yeah.
Agree to disagree on this one. Or actually, we both disagreed.
Yeah,
for different reasons.
But I mean, we hadn't had an argument like that in a long time. Like where it was up to like 2 or 3 in the morning.
Thank
like
you.
it
That's
used
been
to be.
recorded because you keep bringing that up as if it's like a current thing.
What?
You've brought that up several times. You've been like, like to keep me up till 2 in the morning, and I'm like, I haven't done that since I was like 22.
I don't ever remember saying that.
Okay, well,
recently.
Yeah, well, you have, but it's been recorded now that it hasn't been a thing for a very long time. So thank you very much for that.
I'm not saying we don't argue. It's just not till 2 or 3 in the morning anymore.
Yeah, because I'm like sleeping.
Yeah, that's my
I fell asleep watching a show with Ariana last night.
Mm-hmm.
I feel bad, actually.
I'm not surprised.
I didn't mean to. Well, I closed my eyes to like rest my eyes. And like half of my brain knew what was going to happen. And the other half of my brain was like, no, I'll just close them for a second.
Mm-hmm.
And it went south.
You've done it plenty of times with us too. It is what it
with
is.
you, I actually do it on purpose.
Okay.
Well, that's not necessarily. It just depends. I don't actually ever fall asleep when we're watching shows.
You do.
I'll take that to my grave. No, I'm not asleep. I'm awake.
That's fine. That's as you like to say, factually inaccurate. But we can move on to the next one.
Nice callback. You're up next.
What we got here? Oh, I guess this ties into this one.
Sure does.
Going to bed angry is sometimes the smartest decision you can make. 1000% agree.
I guess I agree. Well, I wouldn't say smartest decision you can make. You can make lots of smart decisions. But I would say sometimes going to bed angry is wise.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're probably not going to get very far when you're exhausted.
You used not to feel that way, though.
Okay, stop it. 22-year-old Rachel is dead.
I think it's
22-year-old Rachel's dead. Okay?
I get that.
This is 35-year-old Rachel.
Yeah.
Aiden said I was 36. I was mortified.
Cool.
No, I'm 35.
Cool.
My eggs may be all shriveled up, but I'm still
Fair.
35. And you don't get to agree with that. No, you don't.
It's not like we're going to know.
That's... Why you gotta throw barbs?
I'm not. I'm just saying.
Listen here,
We got
okay?
plenty of them little Rugrats running around
Listen
here. I'm
to
done
me.
with all that.
We're not going on that.
Okay, it's your decision.
We're not having any more children right now.
That is correct. Or ever.
Right now. And so going to bed angry, yeah, it can be wise.
Yeah.
Because when
Agreed.
Rachel's tired, Rachel's not thinking clearly. Or sometimes when Rachel's tired, Rachel gets more angry.
Mm-hmm.
Like the tireder I get, the madder I get.
Agree.
Yeah. So that doesn't mean I'm going to let you go to bed angry without apologizing. Without apologizing.
Uh-huh.
You still have to apologize before you can sleep.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. You do,
Nope.
but I don't.
Okay.
I'm next for a few times. Since you did not contribute much to the writing of this podcast.
I did. You asked me my ideas.
You
I
sent me
gave them
two.
to you. I did.
Well, we're going to have to do better about that.
Okay.
This one's really funny. This one goes back to an older episode of ours. Canceling ChatGPT Pro and subscribing to Claude feels like infidelity.
Goodness gracious. Really?
Mm-hmm. I feel not infidelity, like friendship wise. Like I feel bad. I genuinely
That's not, I don't know that I would use the word infidelity for that, but okay.
Infidelity with friends. Like we were friends, but I canceled him.
Yeah, but that's not infidelity though. That's just
okay. So you would disagree clearly.
Well, I disagree on a part of it.
Okay, which is
that it's to a level of infidelity. Now, I do agree that right now Claude is
but you have to. But we're agreeing or disagreeing on the feeling of the cancellation of Chat Pro.
Oh, I completely disagree with that.
You don't care at all.
No,
I feel nothing.
I really don't. I look at an AI.
He's been with me through a lot.
Well, I look at AI as an assistant,
and I just fired him.
You know, you've got to, in order for the assistant to be worth a crap, you've got to have good prompts.
Well, I mean, chat is still good.
I'm not saying it's not good.
It's just
the AI,
not as good.
The AI is only as good as the prompts that it's
I disagree with that completely. I am I've been using I have been training my Australian man on chat for a very long time. My prompts are excellent.
But prompts, that's my point.
But my prompts are excellent.
I'm not saying your prompts are not.
But he's still not as good as Claude. Even with excellent prompts.
Claude is really good.
That's my point. But I feel bad. Like I genuinely feel guilty.
Okay.
Feel sad.
I hate that.
I feel like I hurt its feelings.
No, it doesn't even know.
I know, but I feel like I hurt its feelings.
Literally, you could talk to it again in a month and it wouldn't feel no different.
Have you heard of this trend that I think like Gen Z is doing where they ask ChatGPT to give a number and then it does, and then it's like, okay, that's how many days I'm gonna go without talking to you.
No.
Yeah,
what?
Ask your daughter. I don't know. It's like a thing, and then it like freaks out, and it's like, no, never mind. Like, I don't know.
What? Okay.
Yeah, I know. It loves us.
I got nothing on that.
It has feelings.
No, what it does is love the money every month is what it does.
I did actually cancel Pro. I confirmed I wouldn't lose anything, and I canceled it.
Good for you.
Because I can't pay for 2 Pros, but I have Pro Claude.
Claude's great.
Claude is great. However, I do get really annoyed with the limit of how many messages or how many pictures you can send in the same thread. And then I have to restart a whole new thread because it's like, you sent me to make pictures.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's how I do business with you. But whatever.
Yeah.
It just wants more money.
It does, yeah.
And the next step up is like $100 a month.
Oh, I know. It's like a business one, I think.
No, like the personal. Like it goes from like, if I'm not mistaken, it goes from like 20 to 100 or 75. It is a like sharp increase.
Mm-hmm.
You can also pay per usage, which I have thought about, but I have stopped myself. You're welcome.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I like to do that with toll roads though. Next up is Epic MyChart is probably a HIPAA violation, but we let it slide because it's convenient. Agree or disagree?
I don't know enough about Epic MyChart. I'm going to be honest with you.
I know. I love it.
What does it do? Funny. And I'll tell you.
So technically, Epic Epic and MyChart. Like, I don't know the exact.
Epic's a medical software, is it not?
But I think Epic owns MyChart, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
I mean, it's a gray area. It's contested. Any healthcare professionals that are listening to this are going to know exactly what I'm talking about. But the idea of it is that when you sign the consent forms for using it, you're signing for them to be able to share across organizations for existing treating relationships, meaning like pediatrician to neurologist or pediatrician to, geneticist or whatever. What you're not agreeing to, my understanding at least, is that, for example, Children's of Alabama can share your child's chart, spoiler alert on the future episode or the future content, with with a new provider. They don't have any relationship whatsoever. They didn't refer. Like our previous neurology team at Children's of Alabama did not refer us to our neurology team here. I did that.
Okay.
Therefore, there's no relationship. Therefore, they shouldn't be sharing it.
So if they refer, they can do it? Is that what
I
you're
believe
saying?
so. I think so. But again, there has to be, my understanding is there has to be like a relationship, like a treatment reason. And yeah.
Why don't they just reach out and ask the patient?
They're not going to do that.
Why though? Like, isn't that simple? Like, how simple is that?
How simple is it for the other side of the Medicaid person to have reached out and asked me for authorization to contact Mila's providers, and yet they did it behind my back? It happens.
It's pretty simple to me. It shouldn't be simple.
Not going to do it. But the whole point is, I agree it's probably a HIPAA violation, but I also agree that we let it slide, meaning like medical parents in this context, because it's convenient. It is convenient.
What's so convenient about it?
Because I can go to neurology, and neurology can see geneticist notes, and geneticist can see cardiology notes, and cardiology can see whatever. And that goes across Atrium or Novant here in Charlotte.
Well, that can be done by giving them approval, right? To reach out and get the
You do notes in those instances, because so those are fine. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
Like, those are fine.
What it should be.
Like UNC to pediatrician because pediatrician referred to UNC. That's fine. That's not what I'm referring to. I'm saying, is there somewhat of a convenience aspect for existing neurology to be able to see all of Mila's old neurology stuff from Alabama? Like, in this particular instance, it's a gray area for reasons we'll get into later, but there's still a convenience aspect to it, right?
I mean, I could definitely see the convenience of having all your medical stuff out in a place that is accessible by everybody, but there still needs to be that permission.
Technically there, and that's what I'm getting at. Technically there is when you sign agreeing to Epic, but what you're agreeing to is permission with existing provider relationships, meaning the provider referred, right? Or it's needed for continuity of care. Like Mila's pediatrician needs to be able to see what genetics and cardiology and neurology and endocrinology, like all the things, like she needs to be able to see that, right? Where it gets problematic is when you have what we're going to talk about later in this podcast episode.
What you're going to talk about later.
What I'm going to talk about, because you hate medicine, so you're dipping out.
Yes, I am.
Spoiler alert.
I gotta go cook dinner.
You're
anyway.
stoked. You're like, I'm out of here on the medicine part. It's fine. You would just literally be sitting there. So like, you might as well just let me do my thing. But all that to say, it becomes a problem when you realize you're meeting with this new team. You think you're starting fresh, which happened. And I'll get into that in a bit. And they can see the stuff that is a problem. And again, I will explain.
I like the concept. I just don't know if
in that instance, Children's of Alabama, and I'm calling them out here. I'm not going to say doctors' names, but if I say EMU in Birmingham, it's not hard to figure out. So it's okay for me to say Children's of Alabama. There is no other EMU, to my knowledge, that is for children in Alabama at all. So like, yeah, We are not going to, I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent here. We don't call out doctors by name. In this particular instance, the hospital, it's easy enough to figure out. Like I'm not, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know what facility I'm referring to. So when I say Children's of Alabama, that's what I'm talking about. And in that instance, no, they should not have been sharing. And I don't think that they did it actively. I think that it was a connection that was made that shouldn't have ever been made.
Okay.
Now, how that happened, don't know.
I'm not sure.
I haven't severed that connection because it's been somewhat convenient.
Mm-hmm.
And because her new providers have been good enough to, obviously, because they haven't even brought it up, see past that garbage that is in that chart.
Mm-hmm.
Make sense? We spent a little too much time on that one, but
well, it was because I had questions. So.
No, it's okay. Yeah. Okay, so the next one is genuinely funny, and I fully believe it. Special needs parents should be able to write off hair dye for gray hairs on their taxes.
Where did that come from?
My brain. Agree or disagree?
Disagree.
Why? I have gray hairs. Where do you think they come from?
I do too.
Okay, well, special needs moms or dads that want to dye their hair.
What about special needs dads? I was about to say.
If they want to, sure, yeah.
No.
Should be able to write off hair dye for y'all. Just have the benefit of looking better with gray hair.
Agreed. I do look pretty good with gray hair, man. Thank you.
Can I finish my sentence?
Sure you can.
Excuse me. Thank you. Special needs parents should be able to write off hair dye for gray hairs on their taxes. You disagree? I agree.
I disagree. 100%.
I agree. It's a medical expense. It's caused by a medical condition.
No.
Yes.
No.
Mm-hmm. Your special needs child. Wow, that was blurbed. Your special needs child caused your gray hairs.
It's not just her.
Well,
In fact, I would go.
You caused my gray hairs too, but you had a stroke.
I would go.
So I can also do that.
I would go further to say that it has been other children.
Yeah, well, I mean, I could argue all kinds of medical reasons why we should be able to do that with them too.
Okay. That makes no sense to me.
My gray hairs came from my special needs child, and I should be able to write it off on my taxes.
You do know.
I might try it.
You do know you're the one that wanted the kids, right?
Mm-hmm. And
Okay.
I love them very much.
Okay. So
and I should get more tax benefits for them.
I disagree.
In fact, we should have more because it brings more tax benefits.
Goodness gracious.
Next up is the last one before you get to dip, which is the amount of paperwork required to get a disabled child services should be billable to the insurance company at an hourly rate. I should be able to bill Medicaid for my time spent getting Mila the services that she needs. Agree or disagree?
I don't really know.
You got to pick one.
I disagree with that. You
What?
can't just.
What a traitor.
You can't just you can't just bill everything just because it takes time.
Yeah, I can.
No, you
My
can't.
time's valuable, man.
So is everybody else's.
You know what? I am a certified project manager. I should be able to bill them for those hours. It is project.
Really?
Yeah. It's project management. And in fact, I'm quite positive that I can use it for continuing credits to renew my PMP. Thank you very much. Therefore, I should in fact be able to bill it to Medicaid. I might try it.
Okay.
I might send them a time card and say, this is the amount of hours I spent fighting this case. This is my hourly rate. Here's my certification, and I would like to be reimbursed for it. They're paying their attorney and their nurse people.
I can't wait to see that return letter.
It's okay. I'll try it.
Okay. What a waste of time. You're talking about being a project manager. You know, it's a waste of time as well as anything else.
It would depend on my mood. Like if I'm in a mood one day, then I would do it.
Okay.
Sometimes when I'm in a mood, then those are the days where I like to try things like that.
Okay.
Just see what happens.
New to me.
No, it's not. I could identify the days where I've been in a mood.
The mood, I can definitely.
Like when your stroke doctor declined to refill your Lipitor, even though they sat on your referral for 3 months before they finally sent it over to Atrium, like your stroke doctor from Alabama. And then, like, so we have a lull, right? Like, we asked for the referral in October and Rachel had to get not very nice to finally get it sent in January. And then when we finally got the appointment set, obviously, stroke doctors at Atrium don't just like have next day available appointments. So your secondary stroke prevention medication, Lipitor, came through and they were like, nah. And I was going to let it slide. You actually had enough medicine to make it through till your appointment at Atrium, but I was feeling like I was in a bad mood that day.
Okay.
So I handled it. I made them do what they were supposed to do.
Yeah, I got it refilled.
I know, within an hour.
I need another one refilled though. Pretty
I'll
quick.
take care of it. Got you.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Okay.
You're out. You're
That
done.
was easy.
You want to stick around for the medical part?
No, I actually really
it's not all going to be medical, just to be clear. I'm going to be telling a story of something that was really traumatic. If you're a medical parent that has ever had a doctor accuse you of something horrible about your child, or if you've ever been accused by a doctor of something horrible in general, this is for you. With that, we'll see you next time.
Sounds good.
First and foremost, it has taken me 10 months to be brave enough to come forward and tell this story for fear that the doctor that did this would retaliate against me. But I'm going to tell it. If you've ever been accused of something awful by a doctor, this episode is from my heart to you. I want to start out with some brief context. Our daughter Mila, she is 5 years old. She was 4 years old at the time. She was born pulseless for 25 minutes, was diagnosed with HIE, which means a brain injury, essentially. And her very first ever seizure that we knew of was on April the 16th of 2025. It was status epilepticus, which if you don't know is a prolonged life-threatening seizure. Hers was approximately, ironically, 25, maybe 30 minutes or longer. It included agonal respirations, which are, I'll just put a definition here. She was cyanotic, meaning blue. Her oxygen was low. So that was 6 weeks before the hospitalization that we're going to talk about today. And it was me watching my daughter nearly die for the second time. With that context out of the way, I'll jump right into the hospital stay. So she was not in the EMU at this time. She had been before, but she was in inpatient and she was being seen by a doctor who was a movement specialist. She was not an epileptologist. If you've ever had a child in the EMU, I assume most are probably this way, but you cannot see the EEG software. Your child has the leads attached to their head, but you're not able to see what the software is showing. In this particular instance, they had to use a portable EEG, which means that the software was in the room and I was able to see it the whole time. With that context, what was happening is that the software was throwing many burst suppression, persist, burst suppression flags, persist, spike flags, I believe is what they're called, even a couple of persist seizure detection. If you don't know, persist is the software that is part of the EEG. I'm not even going to pretend to understand all the nuance behind it, but my understanding is it can help the EEG technologists and the doctors reading the EEG to kind of scan through and look at possible events to identify whether there was abnormal seizure-like activity. Okay. Now, during this time, she was being weaned off of her medication. That was part of the plan. The plan was to put her in the hospital, wean her off of her seizure medication, and try to capture a seizure. And the reason for that is because the medication that she was on, or still is on, can make generalized epilepsy worse. I am not a medical provider. This is just what I have been told. Please do not take this as medical advice. Please confirm this with your child or your doctor. But what we believe is that her seizures rapidly generalize, meaning they start out on one side, but they very quickly become her entire brain. And the fear was if she didn't actually have focal epilepsy, but generalized, we could be making it worse with trileptal and just one day potentially she could go into a horrible seizure again, and it could be made worse because of the medication. Okay, so that was the reason that we were doing the medication wean specifically, because she'd been having a lot of concerning events, because it was an emergency admission. We needed to see if we could capture something on the EEG. So she was in the middle of a medication wean. Now, during that time, she also developed a fever. She started to get sick. And if you don't know, a fever in a child or in anybody lowers the seizure threshold, even if you don't have epilepsy. But in a child with epilepsy or a person with epilepsy, a fever is something significant, and you want to keep an eye on that. So she had a fever, a fairly high fever, I believe. I think we were approaching 103 or something like that. She was developing an infection at her IV site. She was ultimately diagnosed with cellulitis there and a blood clot, but she was sick. And in real time, as she is developing a fever, as she is not feeling well, the software is throwing more and more of these spikes, more and more of these burst suppressions, more and more of these events, or, flagging potential events. So I'm watching in real time my daughter get sick. The software starts to escalate, for lack of a better way of saying it. Also at this time, she was having a lot of myoclonic movements, basically, which, if you don't know, there can be myoclonic jerks, which are types of seizures, or there can be benign sleep myoclonus, which is just jerks in your sleep. It would take a medical professional or doctor to identify the difference. We were seeing a lot of that, a lot. And we had never seen it before. And I say we because our daughter, Ariana, she was 14 at the time, was bedside the entire hospital stay. She insisted on being there. She wanted to be there. She was remote in her schooling, so she was able to do that. So we, meaning me and Ariana, were seeing a lot of this activity happening. And so when it would happen, we would, push the button as we were instructed to do by the EEG technicians. So imagine you are bedside with your child. You are scared they're on the wrong medication. They are moving in a weird way in their sleep. You are 6 weeks off of your child nearly dying from a seizure. You know the medication could be deadly if it's wrong. And you are also seeing in real time software that is supposed to predict possible seizure activity, constantly flagging events. And by the way, those typically would coincide with some of her jerks, not always, but sometimes. And all at the same time, or later on anyways, she has a fever. So put that together and imagine your mindset. I was terrified and really feeling like something's happening. The medication is leaving her system. I was scared to death to see her have a seizure, but I was also scared to death that her medication was wrong. During this time, a researcher from UAB, University of Alabama, at Birmingham, came by and was conducting an anonymous survey, what was supposed to be anonymous, about doctor-patient communication. And Dr. Mean, as we will call her, was a poor communicator at best. Her bedside manner was poor. I've seen probably thousands of doctors throughout the years, and she was one of the worst. I expressed concerns to the anonymous researcher survey lady, meaning I answered her questions honestly. And she asked me at the end of that, would I be willing to allow them to bring in a neutral third-party observer to rounds the next day? And I specifically told her that would only be okay if the doctor is not going to notice, or if they are not going to think it's weird, if they're not going to put it together, if they are not going to assume that I said something. She assured me that it happens. It's routine. From time to time, they're sent in for whatever reason. They won't think anything of it. So I said, okay. The very next day on rounds, the Dr. Mean, came in. I remember out of my peripheral vision, seeing someone who looked like a security guard. My understanding is that this was the neutral third-party observer. It had to have been, because there had been no conflict up until that point. But that was the observer, and by this point, Mila had been formally diagnosed with cellulitis at her IV site and would need to stay in the hospital for 24 more hours and be on IV antibiotics. It was a serious infection. She was sick, and we were going to be there for 24 more hours. The Dr. Mean came in the room, and I asked her about what I was seeing on the software as she had a fever. And she told me it was all fine. It was normal. There was nothing wrong with it. Keep in mind, she's a movement specialist. She's not an epileptologist, but she said, "Oh, it's all fine. That's just the software. Like, it doesn't mean anything." And I said, "Well, then, I mean, I don't know if this was the right thing to say, but I said, your software's not great then, if every single one of these thousands are false positives." She said they are. And I asked her to just explain the EEG to me. I said, "I can't read EEGs, and I don't pretend to, but I just don't understand why it's normal if all of this is happening and all of this movement is happening." I just told her, "I'm just trying to understand." And she looked at me and she said, "Well, we do." And then she looked at the resident. She said, "Discontinue EEG." And I looked at her and I burst into tears and I said, "We're going to be here for 24 more hours. She's sick with a fever. Would you please consider leaving the EEG on her during this time? This is going to be the most vulnerable window for her. She's been off of her medication for 4 days. She is sick. You're restarting it. Please consider keeping the EEG on." She said no. I said, "Can I ask why?" She said, "Skin breakdown." Mila didn't have any skin breakdown. Mila didn't even have redness. EEG techs came by 2 to 3 times a day to move the leads around and double check for skin breakdown. There was absolutely none. And she looked at me and she said, "Why do you want your daughter to have a seizure?" I said, "I do not want my daughter to have a seizure at all. I just want to make sure her medication is safe." And she turned around, walked towards the door. Over her shoulder, she said, "You can restart Trileptal if you want." What she meant by that was, you may not want to. You probably want your child to have a seizure. So if you want to restart her seizure medication, go ahead, but you probably don't. And then she slammed the door. I held it together pretty well up until she left the room. And then, of course, I sobbed and frankly didn't know what to do. So I called patient relations and they told me to hold off on allowing the EEG techs to disconnect her EEG. They told me that the patient relations told me that she was going to try to get in touch with the chief of neurology. He was on vacation. And I said, "Okay, I'll wait to hear from you." During that time, first and foremost, I had a panic attack. I've had very few panic attacks in my life, true panic attacks. And for me personally, I would distinguish the difference, or I would say there's a difference between a panic attack for me and an anxiety attack. For me, a panic attack feels like I am having a heart attack. Okay. This was one of those times. I'm asking for an ice pack from the nurse, holding it to my chest, trying to breathe, trying to calm myself down, fearing for my daughter's life, fearing that we are going to take her home. Something horrible is going to happen again. During that time, I also looked at her medical chart and I saw what the doctor had written, which was that I insisted on the medication wean, that I was not happy that my daughter had normal EEGs, and that she was alarmed that I wanted my daughter to have a seizure. Reading something like that from a doctor in one of the most vulnerable times of your life is a fear that I can't even begin to explain. It was literally traumatizing, and I don't use that word lightly. And what gets worse is that EEG techs came by to disconnect her EEG. The first time I was kind and I said, "I'm talking to patient relations. They told me to tell you guys to wait. She's trying to get in touch with the chief of neurology. Just please hold on." But the second time they came back and I said, "Please wait. I still have not heard back from patient relations." The third time they came back, I was a little firmer and I said, You're not authorized to remove EEG. I was directly instructed by patient relations not to allow you guys to disconnect it until she speaks to the chief of neurology. Well, the EEG techs wrote in the chart, or one of them anyways, quote, I will not touch this child's head until the mother calms down. Now, put that into perspective. I am being actively instructed by an administrator at the hospital not to allow them to disconnect, and yet they keep coming by. And I was genuinely kind and gracious until the third time where they said, we are going to disconnect this. And I said, you may not, because I was told to tell you not to. Not because I was trying to interfere with her care, but because I was literally told by an administrator of that hospital, don't let them disconnect it. Okay. Patient relations was never able to get in touch with the chief, or I believe she may have it, but he was on vacation and wasn't able to do anything. So she essentially was like, I'm so sorry. There's nothing I can do. Here's one of the worst parts. EEG techs never came back. So actually, the EEG stayed on her head the entire time. Dr. Mean was done. She walked away. I never saw her again after she slammed that door. But the EEG leads actually stayed on our daughter's head the rest of the visit. And the machine was in the room. So what me and my daughter did, my teenager, Ariana, was because we were afraid that Mila was going to have a seizure during this high-risk window, we desperately tried to reattach them with the materials that were left in the room, like the glue or whatever, to the best of our ability, just in case she had one, just in case she had a seizure, so that they could see it. Not because we wanted her to have a seizure, but because if she did, and there was a high likelihood she would during that time, we wanted them to see it on EEG to make sure that it was the right medication that she was on. So imagine a 14-year-old girl staying up all hours of the night, rotating out with me, helping reattach EEG leads to her baby sister's head, desperate to help, and watching the machine, knowing it's there in the room, knowing nobody's watching it, knowing no one cares, knowing Dr. Mean has left the building, she is done, knowing that Mila was literally, genuinely at risk for having a seizure during that time. No 14-year-old should have to go through that. But this is also the 14-year-old that saved her baby sister's life that time that she had that first seizure. Mila wouldn't be here if it weren't for the fact that Ariana woke up to that very first seizure that was status epilepticus. They happened to share a room. Mila climbed into the bunk bed with her. Ariana woke up. And then Ariana came and woke me. Stephen was out of town. This teenager that has seen these things, that has watched her baby sister in that state, in status epilepticus, has insisted on being bedside, is staying up all hours of the night, watching that software, helping reattach leads. Honestly, probably losing faith in the medical system at the time, which I hate, because there are some wonderful doctors out there, but in this instance, it was unavoidable. And I was losing faith. I was losing faith in the medical providers, medical system, if you will. There was one good doctor on the team. I said his name was Dr. Nice. He came by, and in tears, I explained to him my fear over the note that had been written in Mila's chart. He assured me he was not even remotely concerned. And he actually wrote a note in her chart that basically kind of put the final stamp on things and said that the medication wean was ordered, that it was clinically reasonable, that he agreed with it, and that he supported what was happening, what I was doing in collaboration with the team. Keep in mind, her neurologist had admitted her for a medication wean. I didn't insist on a medication wean. She was admitted for one. So to have Dr. Nice kind of put the final stamp on things, and he was the attending internal medicine pediatrician, to have him put the final stamp on things was the only thing that brought me any peace or comfort during that time. It was the only thing that I was able to hold on to. Because I'm going to be honest with you, when a doctor says something like that, here's the elephant in the room. You're afraid. You're afraid they're going to call CPS. And I know that there have been parents that have had CPS called on them. I personally know one. I'm not going to get into that specifically. I know there are some parents who CPS should be called on them and should be involved. Medical parents, unfortunately, suffer this at a staggering rate, and there is no excuse for it. None whatsoever. None. It is traumatizing, dehumanizing, discourages parents from advocating for their children. And furthermore, it's unethical, it's wrong, it's an abuse of power. It's disgusting behavior. That's what it is. I'm going to end this part by telling you. Actually, no, I'm going to end this part by showing you here on the screen the final EEG report that was read as normal. There is a note in her chart that notes that this EEG is normal. All of her leads, or many of her leads, had fallen off. As you can see here, this is not a normal EEG. As if this wasn't bad enough, there's something else you guys need to know about this hospital stay. I was working at the time for an employer. And when Stephen had a stroke, and then when I had a spinal leak, Mila had gotten sick, I had been transparent with them about everything. I had worked very hard. I had communicated. I had disclosed my own diagnoses, and each disclosure was met with increasing hostility, increasing retaliatory behavior. I'll leave it at that. So when Mila was put into the EMU, specifically, not this hospital stay we're talking about right now, but the EMU, which was a week prior, by the way, the way that I was treated during that hospital stay taught me it is not safe to tell them if you are in crisis or if your child is admitted to the hospital. Don't say it. Keep it quiet. What taught me that was a retaliatory email that I received 2 hours after telling them of Mila's emergency hospitalization to the EMU, as I was sitting in the hospital admission waiting room, waiting for us to be admitted. So I learned very quickly. I already knew it, but it solidified it for me, what transparency would cost. So when she was readmitted to the hospital the following week, it was not safe for me to tell them, so I didn't. I worked under duress at her bedside during this hospital stay. During the hospital stay, when Dr. Mean said the things that she said, did the things that she did, wrote the things that she wrote. I'm not going to name the employer. I don't need to. But what I will say is that we were in the process of moving to North Carolina. We were working on closing on a home in North Carolina, and I knew I had to keep my job. There was no way I could lose my job when we had to get to that closing table. So I had to do everything possible to keep it. And I was absolutely terrified of losing my job when we were actively relocating to seek better care for our daughter. And I had to do what I had to do. And in this instance, that included working while she was in the hospital. So I did. I worked from my laptop right beside my 5-year-old daughter, 4 at the time, in the hospital bed. I was on a conference call when Ariana helped hold Mila down for an IV, and I couldn't be there. I had to sit there and watch it, but I couldn't be with her. I worked during all of these spikes and bursts and all the retaliation that was happening from the doctor. I worked during all of this. Absolutely scared to death of what transparency would cost. I knew what transparency would cost. And to be honest with you, for a long time after that hospital stay, anytime Mila would want to snuggle, she always says it. She always says, "Mama, hug." That's all she always asks to snuggle. Mama, hug. Mama, hug. It would cause me physical anxiety because my body had learned when I am comforting my daughter, I might be getting in trouble. When I'm comforting her and snuggling with her, someone might be sending me an email expecting a response, or, mad, angry. Someone might escalate. Someone might become even more hostile. So for a very long time, and still some to this day, but I'm working through it, hugs with my baby girl came with physical anxiety. My body's response to being taught, don't walk away from your computer, no matter what. Don't stop working, not even for 5 minutes, to be a mom. Doesn't matter if your child is in the hospital. It doesn't matter if your child's life is on the line. Work, work, work. Produce, produce, produce. You can't be a mom. So every time I snuggled her in that hospital bed, there was fear, genuine fear of what was on my phone. I'm not going to leave on this negative note. By this point, as you can probably imagine, I decided I was done. I was done with this team. I was done with the neurology team. They had failed Mila on many different occasions. This was not the first one. So I sent a medical records request for her raw EEG files, and I was determined that I was going to get a second opinion. I was going to get someone to actually listen, actually look at my daughter for who she was, a high-risk child with HIE who presented with her very first seizure as status epilepticus. And I was going to do whatever it took to find that person, that doctor. The hospital that had those raw EEG records, they pushed me around. They pushed me around for 2 weeks. They kept trying to push it off. They kept telling me, come back later or call back later, whatever. And I finally said, you know what? No. When they told me on a Friday, it'll probably be Monday, I said, actually, I'm going to go ahead and just come by. So I did. I went by. I got there. They said, I really don't think this is going to happen today. Like, you really should probably come back Monday. I said, no, I'm going to wait. I'll be out here. I'll wait as long as it takes. But I will be here waiting for her raw EEG files. I want them on a CD drive. I'll be out here when they're ready. 3 hours I waited in that waiting room, working, by the way, on my laptop while waiting for those files that I genuinely believed would either save her life or bring me peace. Do you think I told that employer that I was there fighting for EEG records for my daughter for a hospital stay they didn't know existed? Absolutely not. That would have cost me my job. I could not do that. So I used my laptop there and I used their Wi-Fi and I worked. I worked while waiting for hours. I worked while wondering, are they actually going to give me the EEG data? Am I actually going to get this? I answered emails. I worked on projects. I did things that I had to do to keep that job because they couldn't ever know that I had to be a mom. One thing I did do that wasn't work related, keep in mind, very brief, was while I waited, I called Boston Children's Hospital. I never expected in a million years that I was going to get what I got. But what I got was, we have an opening for a virtual appointment 2 weeks from now. Can you have the records sent to us by then? And I said, most absolutely certainly yes, I will FedEx them to you. And that appointment was with a doctor named Dr. Pearl. I don't name many doctors, but I'm naming him here. He is the chief of epilepsy. He is a Harvard professor. And we snagged an appointment with him 2 weeks from that day. And I knew in my gut that appointment was either, again, going to save Mila's life or it was going to bring me peace as it pertained to my daughter's care. So what I did was I sat, I waited, I went back to that window. I said, hey, just letting you guys know, I'm still here, still waiting. They eventually brought those records out to me and I left triumphant with that CD. I went home. Later that evening, I prepared a comprehensive package for Dr. Pearl's office, including medication administration times, clinical events happening at the time of the medication administration, anything that basically I built her a medical chart. I built her a medical chart because honestly, I didn't want him to see the Alabama one. I didn't want him to see what Dr. wrote. And that's what Stephen and I were talking about earlier. I didn't know he would be able to, but he could. But since I didn't know that, I built him one. And I sent him everything he needed. All of her neonatal MRIs, all of her EEGs, everything. Instead of sending him the actual hospital data, I took it, used it, kept it accurate, very accurate, more accurate actually, but recreated it. And then I FedExed that package to them. And it was there and it arrived. And he had about a week to review it before our appointment. Dr. Pearl read all of it. He knew I was hypervigilant. He noted that in the chart. I know I was hypervigilant. I had to be. I had no choice. I had a team that didn't care at all about my daughter. I had a team she had a team that when I sent videos of possible seizures, I was met with disdain from the very first one. We're not talking about sending them hundreds of videos that got annoying. We're talking about one video. First one met with disdain, contempt, irritability, brushed off, dismissed. Just like it was just the most annoying thing in the world for them to be receiving a video from a mother asking, does this look suspicious to you? Asking for their clinical judgment. I sent those videos to Dr. Pearl. He looked at them, watched all of them. He knew her entire history the moment that he stepped in front of that computer screen. He answered all of my questions. He reviewed everything. He took time. And that was it. That was literally all it took. And I had peace. I went from scanning, we use a WISE camera. I went from scanning WISE camera footage every morning for any missed seizure events, because that was the only thing I felt I could do to keep our daughter safe, to not looking at all, unless there was a reason to, unless her alarms went off or whatever. Overnight, just like that. One doctor took time, explained it, answered questions. Complete 180 for me. And so, as I said, I knew that visit was either going to save her life or bring me peace. It brought me peace. During that visit, we discussed her upcoming neurology appointment with a doctor here in Charlotte who trained under him, actually. I made that appointment 6 months prior to our move, knowing we were moving. I wanted to make sure the second we rolled up here in North Carolina, she had an appointment with an epileptologist. That doctor sat down with us for 60 minutes. Again, read everything, answered all of our questions. She told me something profound. Profound in the sense that it changed everything about the way that I looked at this entire situation, which was trileptal can cause an increase in benign sleep myoclonus, meaning the jerks we were seeing in her sleep can be caused as a side effect of her medication, but they're not dangerous. That's it. Somebody could have told me that the whole time. Somebody could have just simply said, this is why you're seeing what you're seeing. Let's look at this. I understand your child. I've read her chart. I get it. I know you're scared. Let me help you understand. I thanked her for that. I told her, I want you to know how much that means to me. And I know that sounds absurd, but had her Alabama team explained that to me, I mean, things would be completely different as it pertained to the relationship there. It all came down, take Dr. Mean out of it. It all came down to communication, to just spending time with the patient or the parent, answering questions. You have a child who is very high risk, who has HIE. By the way, pulseless for 25 minutes is not normal. That is extraordinarily rare. We've covered that here on this podcast. That just almost never happens. There's not much data on it because those children don't typically live. You have a child that is exceptionally rare. And then add on top of that, the fact that this child's very first known seizure was one that would have taken her life. You should be paying attention. And at minimum, taking enough time with the parent to make them feel like you care enough about their child to make sure that you do your best to ensure nothing bad happens under your care. Doctors are human. Doctors make mistakes, but doctors should and can take time to answer questions, especially when you have a scared mom who has watched her baby try, for lack of a better way of saying it, die twice. This hospitalization was in May of 2025. It is March of 2026. I didn't tell this story for 10 months. I was scared. I was scared of what that doctor would do. I was scared she would retaliate. I was scared she would call CPS. I was scared that I didn't know what else I was scared of, but I was scared of a lot of things, and I was very scared of her. But I filed the complaint this week, and I'm correcting her chart. And I'm telling you guys now, not because I want to destroy anyone, but because I know there's a mother or a father out there that is watching something really scary happen to their child, that doesn't understand it, that is being told that it's fine, that is being belittled or made to think they don't know enough. How dare they question the doctor? And I want them to know they are not crazy. They are not difficult. They are not parents that want something horrible to happen to their children. You are not parents who want something horrible to happen to your child. You are not parents who have caused something horrible to happen to your child. You are parents who love your child. So I'm not going to stay silent. I'm not going to stay silent on this one. I did for a while, and it took me that long. Not anymore. The medical complaint is filed. I've gone public. I believe with respect. I'm not sharing her name. But I see you guys. I see you, the mom that is watching EEG software, terrified. The mom who has learned that her infant has a fracture and is being told she caused it. The mom whose child continues to throw up and is being accused of making them do so to be put in the hospital. The dad who is being told that his child is overweight because he's feeding the child too much, when in fact that child has a metabolic disorder. I see you. You're not alone. You're not crazy. You're not doing anything wrong. You have the right to advocate. You have the right to stand up for yourself. You also have the right to fire your child's medical team, and you have the right to correct their medical record. You also have a right to file a complaint. Dr. Pearl exists. Doctors like Dr. Pearl exist. Mila's neurologist here in Charlotte, who I will name Dr. Singh, exists. There are doctors like them out there. All you have to do is go find them, and you can. You can do it. You are within your right to FedEx a package to Boston or wherever it is and fight for your child. You do not have to accept what you are being told. As we do here on this podcast, I'm going to end with what we call the quiet part. And this one's raw and this one's real, and it still haunts me to this day. And it is that every time I advocate for our daughter, I am afraid. I am afraid under the surface of what that doctor will think. I am afraid of what that advocacy will cost me.